The cafe smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans and warm vanilla. A soft drizzle tapped against the windows, leaving tiny silver trails that blurred the streetlights outside. Inside, the chatter of other customers filled the air, laughter, clinking cups, the hum of background jazz. But at a small table in the corner, Aisha sat alone, nervously stirring her coffee that had already gone cold. She kept glancing at the entrance every few seconds, pretending to check her phone just to look busy. Her date, the mysterious Samir her best friend had set her up with, was supposed to arrive 30 minutes ago. 30 long dragging minutes. Each passing second felt like a quiet insult. The waiter, a young man with kind eyes and a white apron tied loosely around his waist, walked by for the second time and smiled politely. "Would you like to order anything else, ma'am?" he asked gently, his tone soft but slightly apologetic. Aisha forced a smile. "No, thank you. I'm just waiting for someone." He nodded, though his eyes said what she already knew, that someone might not be coming. Her fingers played with the edge of her napkin, folding and unfolding it until it tore slightly. She hated this, the feeling of waiting, the uncertainty that pressed on her chest like a weight. She wasn't even sure why she'd agreed to this blind date in the first place. Her best friend Zara had insisted. "You need to stop hiding in your work, Aisha." "He's nice, decent, has 2 kids, but he's genuine. Just meet him once. Worst case, you'll get a free coffee." Aisha had laughed at that. She wasn't the type to believe in blind dates anymore. She'd been through her share of broken promises, a long relationship that ended without closure, a few dates that fizzled into nothing, and a growing fear that maybe love just wasn't in her cards. She glanced down at her watch again. 6:47 p.m. He was late. Very late. Maybe he had second thoughts. Or maybe he'd seen her through the glass, decided she wasn't his type, and left. The thought stung, though she tried to shake it off. Outside, the rain grew heavier, splattering against the glass in rhythmic waves. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, turning the street into a blur of gold and blue. Couples walked past the cafe window, hand in hand, huddled under shared umbrellas. Aisha watched them absently, her heart twisting with a quiet envy she didn't want to admit. Her phone buzzed suddenly, a notification. Her heart leapt, but it was just Zara sending a meme. Aisha sighed, typing a quick reply. "He's not here." "Think I'm heading home," Zara replied almost instantly. "Give him 10 more minutes. Maybe traffic. You know how Karachi gets after rain." Aisha smiled faintly. True. The roads would be jammed right now, and the storm probably slowed everyone down. But deep down, she didn't believe it. She took another sip of her coffee. Bitter, lukewarm, disappointing. Just like the evening. She looked around the cafe again, her eyes scanning the tables. There was a group of university students sharing fries, a young couple lost in each other's eyes, an older man reading the newspaper while sipping tea. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere, everyone except her. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling a sudden chill. Maybe it wasn't the weather, maybe it was the loneliness she carried, the one she kept pretending wasn't there. The waiter passed by again, slower this time. "Are you sure you don't want anything else?" he asked with that same careful kindness. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I think I'll just go." He nodded, giving a sympathetic half-smile. "I'll bring your bill." As he walked away, Aisha took one last look at the empty chair across from her. She'd imagined what this evening might look like. Maybe laughter. Maybe that awkward but sweet first conversation. She'd even worn her favorite blue dress, the one Zara said brought out her eyes. She had hoped to feel seen again, but now, staring at the vacant seat, she just felt foolish. She began gathering her things, her purse, her phone, her coat draped over the chair. Her reflection in the cafe window caught her off guard. She looked composed on the outside, but her eyes told the truth, a mix of disappointment and quiet resignation. She whispered under her breath, "Never again." The waiter returned with the bill, placing it gently on the table. "I'm sorry if your friend didn't make it," he said softly. Aisha nodded with a small, tight smile. "It's all right. Maybe next time." But there wouldn't be a next time. Not for blind dates, not for waiting like this. She was done. She reached into her purse for her wallet, but her fingers trembled slightly. She didn't even know if it was from sadness or frustration. Maybe both. The bell above the cafe door jingled as someone walked in, and for a moment, she froze. Her eyes flicked up, her breath catching, but it was just another customer. A young man rushing in from the rain, shaking his umbrella. She looked down again, disappointed at herself for hoping. "Here you go," she said, handing the waiter a few notes. "Keep the change." "Thank you, ma'am," he said, bowing his head slightly. She slipped on her coat and picked up her umbrella. The rain had slowed to a drizzle now, the kind that made the air smell like wet earth and new beginnings. She wished she could believe in beginnings again. As she reached for her purse, her phone buzzed again. One more message from Zara. "If he doesn't show up, we're watching a movie tonight." "My treat, ice cream included." Aisha smiled softly. "Deal," she typed back. She stood, adjusting her purse on her shoulder, and looked at the empty table one last time. It felt symbolic, a perfect picture of her love life. Empty, quiet, waiting for something that never came. As she turned to leave, the cafe door opened again, letting in a gust of cold air and the faint sound of laughter. She didn't notice the two small figures who had just walked in. Not yet. She was too busy walking away, trying to forget the table that had been waiting for someone who never came. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Aisha had already gathered her purse, ready to leave behind her half-finished coffee and a half-forgotten hope, when laughter echoed through the cafe. Light, innocent, and musical. It wasn't the laughter of adults. It was higher, freer, the kind that made even tired hearts turn and look. She glanced toward the door. Two little girls had just dashed in, their rain boots squeaking on the tiled floor. The drizzle outside had left tiny droplets on their yellow raincoats, and their identical ponytails bounced with every step. They were twins, perhaps 6, maybe 7, carrying the kind of joy only children could. The waiter frowned playfully. "Slow down, young ladies," he called out. "You'll slip," but the girls were too excited to listen. They scanned the cafe, eyes wide and curious, until they spotted Aisha, sitting alone at the corner table in her blue dress. One of them, the one with a pink clip shaped like a butterfly, tugged her sister's sleeve and whispered something. Then, taking a deep breath, she marched toward Aisha with the confident seriousness only a child on a mission could have. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice small but sure. Aisha, surprised, blinked. "Yes?" The little girl clasped her tiny hands together. "Our daddy says he's sorry he's late." For a moment, Aisha thought she'd misheard. "Your daddy?" The girl nodded vigorously, her twin joining her side. "Yes. He told us to find the pretty lady in the blue dress and tell her he's parking the car." Aisha froze. Pretty lady in the blue dress. That was exactly what she was wearing. Her pulse quickened. She turned toward the cafe window, the glass foggy with condensation. And through it, she saw a tall man step out of a car parked just outside. He looked around, slightly panicked, holding a white paper-wrapped bouquet that was getting speckled with raindrops. He wore a black coat over a shirt and tie that seemed hurriedly thrown together, the kind of man juggling too much, but still trying to make an effort. He pushed open the cafe door a moment later, the small bell chiming above him. A cool gust of air followed, carrying the scent of rain and something familiar, hope. "Girls," he said, a little out of breath, though his voice was warm. "You ran off before I even paid the parking ticket." The twins turned, laughing. "We found her, Daddy." Aisha stood still, half in disbelief. The man looked at her then, really looked, and something like recognition flickered across his face. He walked toward her with a small, apologetic smile, brushing the damp from his coat sleeve. "You must be Aisha," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "I'm Samir. I'm so sorry I kept you waiting. Traffic was a mess, and I had to pick these two from school last minute. I didn't want to cancel." Aisha exhaled a small, stunned laugh. "So you sent your little assistants?" Samir grinned, kneeling slightly to straighten one of the girl's raincoats. "Yeah, my emergency messengers." He looked back at her. "I hope you don't mind the unexpected company." She hesitated, glancing at the twins, who were now giggling as they tried to count the sugar packets on the table. "Mind? Not at all," she said finally, her lips curling into a smile. "They seem very efficient." The tension she had carried for over an hour began to melt away. Samir looked at her for a moment, then handed her the bouquet. Lilies, delicate and white. "These were supposed to arrive before me," he said sheepishly. "Looks like they failed their mission too." She took them, smiling softly. "They're beautiful." "Thank you." He nodded, his smile grateful. Then he motioned toward the empty chair. "May I?" "Of course," Aisha said, sitting back down. The waiter appeared again, looking amused. "So the mystery man does exist," he teased lightly. "Barely," Samir said, chuckling. "And I come with accessories." He nodded toward the girls, who were now rearranging napkins into neat squares. The waiter laughed. "Family special then. I'll bring more napkins." Once he left, Samir leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "I swear I had the best intentions today. I even planned to be early, but my daughter's school called. Their teacher was sick, so they released them early. And well," he gestured helplessly at the twins, who were now pretending to play cafe waitresses. "Here we are." Aisha couldn't help it. She laughed, and it wasn't the polite kind she'd been giving people for months. It was genuine, light, real. "Life happens," she said. "And apparently it brings sugar packet towers." "Exactly," he said, relieved by her easy tone. "I was honestly scared you'd leave." "I almost did," she admitted. "But I guess I was meant to wait." For a second, their eyes met, and there was something in that glance. Something that felt like timing, like fate adjusting itself just when it needed to. The twins suddenly interrupted. "Daddy, can we have hot chocolate?" Samir sighed, pretending to groan. "Only if you promise not to spill it this time." Ira gasped dramatically. "That was Hania, not me." "Was not." Aisha burst out laughing again as Samir raised his hands in mock surrender. "See? This is what dating as a single dad looks like." "I think it's wonderful," she said softly. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the sincerity in her eyes. No judgment, no pity, just understanding. They talked as the waiter brought the hot chocolates, steam rising between smiles and shared glances. The twins chatted endlessly, about school, their cat named Bubbles, how they liked drawing stars on the window when it rained. Aisha listened, laughing at their stories. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about the past, or the mistakes, or the loneliness that had been her quiet shadow. She was simply there, in that little cafe filled with laughter, rainlight, and the scent of lilies. When the twins started doodling with spoons on the foggy window, Samir leaned closer and said softly, "I wasn't sure about this blind date. It's been years since I've done something like this." She nodded. "Me too," he smiled faintly. "But I'm glad I did, and I'm sorry again for how it started." Aisha shook her head. "You don't have to be sorry," she said. "Some stories just begin differently." Outside, the rain began to slow, leaving only soft ripples in puddles on the street. Inside, the awkwardness had vanished completely, replaced by something warm, something real. Aisha looked around the cafe once more, the same place that had felt empty just minutes ago, and realized how full it suddenly seemed. Full of laughter, full of life. And somewhere deep down, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Hope. Samir smiled, a little breathless, brushing a few raindrops off his coat. "I had to pick up my daughters from school unexpectedly," he said, still catching his breath. "I hope you don't mind a slightly chaotic first meeting." Aisha's lips curved into an involuntary smile. The twins, Hania and Hira, had already made themselves comfortable. One was stacking sugar packets into a miniature tower, while the other tried to balance a spoon on her nose. "Mind?" Aisha said, chuckling softly. "They're keeping me more entertained than any adult date could." Samir laughed, the sound warm and disarming. That's them. My built-in chaos generators. Something in his tone, the tired affection, the humor hiding under years of single parenting, made Aisha's chest tighten. He wasn't pretending to be perfect. He wasn't trying to impress her with charm or polish. He was just real. The waiter appeared with menus, his eyebrows lifting slightly at the scene before him, the elegant woman in blue, the tall man still damp from rain, and two little girls giggling over sugar packets. It wasn't the usual romantic dinner setup, but there was something wholesome about it. "Would you like to order?" the waiter asked. Samir looked at the twins. "Ladies first. Chocolate milk," they chimed together. "And a brownie," added Hira, eyes bright. Aisha grinned. "Make that 2 brownies," she said. "I think I deserve one too." "Excellent choice," Samir said, pretending to note something on the menu like a waiter. "Strong character, good taste, loves chocolate. I see why Zara spoke so highly of you." She laughed, a sound that felt lighter than it had in months. "And what did she tell you exactly? That you're smart, funny, kind, and, her words, not mine, hopelessly guarded." Aisha raised an eyebrow. "She said that, did she?" "She did," he admitted with a sheepish grin. "But I think she meant it as a compliment." Their eyes met, and for a brief second, the noise of the cafe faded. There was a softness there, a recognition of two people who'd both seen life's harder sides, and yet still showed up, trying again. The waiter brought their drinks, and soon the table was filled with warmth, steam rising from cups, giggles from the twins, and a sense of unexpected belonging. "So," Samir began, stirring his coffee, "tell me something about you that Zara doesn't already know." Aisha smiled faintly, looking out at the rain-streaked window before answering. "I love rainy days, but I hate walking alone in them. It feels too quiet, like the world is whispering things I'm not ready to hear." Samir nodded slowly. "That's poetic," she shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just loneliness with fancy words." There was silence for a moment. Then quietly he said, "I get that. After my wife passed, evenings felt the same. Too quiet. Too many whispers." Aisha's heart softened. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. The look in his eyes told her everything. Love, loss, resilience. The twins broke the silence in their own innocent way. "Daddy, can she come play with us sometime?" Samir blinked, caught off guard. "Girls!" Aisha laughed, rescuing him. "Only if your dad says it's okay." Hira leaned forward, whispering, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He'll say yes. He smiled when you smiled." Samir nearly choked on his coffee, while Aisha tried to hide her blush. The twins giggled like they'd just told the greatest secret in the world. "You two," he said, mock glaring at them, "are officially banned from talking during grown-up conversations." "But we are grown-ups," Hania said proudly. "We're in grade 2. "Exactly," Samir said. "And that's about 17 grades short of permission to tease your father." Even Aisha couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. It was the kind of laugh that bubbled up from the heart, unforced and free. The kind that came only when something inside you began to heal. As the evening went on, the rain softened outside, turning into a mist that glowed under the streetlights. Inside the cafe, the world felt smaller, warm, intimate, safe. The twins drew pictures on napkins while Samir and Aisha talked. About books, about work, about how hard it was to start over when you weren't sure you could trust the world again. Hours slipped away like minutes. When the waiter came by to clear their table, Aisha realized how long they'd been there. The cafe was nearly empty now. Only a few customers remained, and the soft hum of the closing playlist filled the room. Samir checked his watch and sighed. "I should probably get these two home. It's past bedtime." Hira yawned in agreement, resting her head on his arm. Hania had already fallen asleep in her chair, clutching her chocolate-stained napkin art. "They had fun," Aisha said softly. "So did I," Samir replied. "More than I expected to." Their eyes met again. And this time there was something unspoken between them. Something tentative yet full of promise. He stood, gently lifting one daughter into his arms while holding the other's hand. The bouquet of lilies still sat on the table, a little damp but beautiful all the same. "Don't forget your flowers," Aisha said, handing them to him. He hesitated. "Actually," he said quietly, "I brought them for you." She froze. "For me?" He nodded, offering the bouquet. They were supposed to be a first hello, but maybe they're better as a thank you. For staying, for understanding. Aisha took them slowly, her fingers brushing his. "You don't have to thank me," she said. "I do," he replied, his voice gentle. "You didn't walk away," she smiled, holding the lilies close. "Maybe I was just waiting for the right reason to stay." He smiled back, a real, unguarded smile. "Then maybe I was just late for the right reason." Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The air smelled of wet earth and beginnings. As Samir led his daughters out, Aisha followed them to the door, watching as they crossed the street together, the twins skipping in puddles, their father holding their hands. For the first time in a long while, her heart didn't feel empty. She looked down at the bouquet in her hand. Drops of water glistened on the petals, catching the light like tiny stars. She smiled to herself and whispered, almost in disbelief, "Sometimes. The best dates really do come with little surprises." And as she stepped out into the quiet night, one thing was certain. She wasn't thinking about an empty table anymore. She was thinking about how destiny sometimes runs a few minutes late, but always, always arrives right on time.